Hi, this is Dr. Scott, and today we're going to get into the second of our series, the 14th Amendment. This is the second section. You're going to see how relevant this 1868 document is. It is, this one I call it the reapportionment without illegals. Now, so let's go and read it a little bit. We're going to see what it actually says. Sorry, I got to bring it up here on the screen. And you're going to see how relevant this particular one, sorry, it's going to use the right part of the screen here. Okay, the second section says the representatives, which are, those in Congress, those in Senate, those in the president, okay? Representatives shall be apportioned among the several states. So obviously, well, that would skip over the president, sorry. Among the several states. So this would be after the Civil War. So it's now saying we've got to look at redistricting. Okay, so we call it redistricting today, but it's saying now we've got to really relook at everything. Now, listen, at the time frame of 1868, remember 700,000 men and some women, but mostly men, and they're counting men at the time too. So you're going to think about men in a very different way than the women. Okay, this is not being perfectly PC at the time, because only men could vote. Because you're going to see male citizens at the age of 21. Now, the 15th Amendment is going to deal with women voting. That's the suffrage conversation, okay? But 720,000 citizens in today's conversation, that would be like losing Arizona, okay? We've talked about this one before. So the representatives shall be apportioned among the several states according to their respective numbers. Now, this would be really difficult for the southern states because they lost so many more. And this was not very thrilling for those states, right? Counting the whole number of persons in each state. Now, excluding Indians not taxed. Now, this is a really difficult thing. Now, I'm gonna pause for a half a second because I do want to talk a little bit about the Indian conversation. Now, when you read through some of the Nasara documentation, there are some really interesting conversations that happen in the Indian conversation that we see, indigenous, some people want to call it indigenous. And by the way, if you don't know, I'm actually 1/64th Cherokee. I'm not on the rolls, but I'm actually bigger than some chiefs. And if I were, now I'm 191 pounds. When I was in high school and probably weighed 140, you could see my cheekbones and it was very, very evident. I remember I was in theater a lot. And the girls would put rouge on my cheekbones, and you could really see it. I looked like a girl, but I really hated it when they put so much rouge on my cheekbones. You could see the heavy cheekbone line of the Cherokee in me, right? Now, the Indian population actually is represented in this Nasara documentation. It's really interesting that the American government actually has to pay back the apportionment of this. Very, very interesting conversation. Okay, now, so representatives shall be apportioned among the several states according to the respective numbers, counting the whole number of the persons in each state, excluding the Indians not taxed. But when the right to vote for any elected election for the choice of electors for president and vice president of the United States. Now, electors are really a hot topic because some people want to go by popular vote. If we did popular vote, we would actually have presidents picked from the largest cities. They would only go to Houston, they would go to New York City and LA, towns like that, Chicago, and they would skip over Nebraska. They would skip over Oklahoma. They would skip over Kansas. There would be whole territories that would be completely skipped over. And this would be really, really bad. Colorado, Oregon, they would have no voice whatsoever. And you would have popular outrising. This would be a really bad thing. That's why we have electors in those states, right? So that we have a representative type of government. We are not a democracy. We are a constitutional republic. This is why we see this kind of conversation in here, a choice of electors, right? For the president and vice president. And there's a lot of interesting conversations we've kind of lost track of. Representatives, Congress, the executive and judicial officers of a state, and members of legislators is denied of any male inhabitants being of age of 21 and the citizens of the United States. Now, it's interesting that we popped the age down to 18, okay, or in any way abridged, except for the participation and rebellion or any crime in the basis of representation therein shall be reduced by the proportion which is the number of male citizens shall bear the whole number of the male citizens. So basically what they're saying is that if we have, make up a number, 1 million people in a particular area, if we drop that number down by 100,000 because we have lesser numbers of people under 21 and people who are in rebellion, that were active rebellion, that would drop it down by, 100,000. And so we would only have 900,000. So we had to have a real good census capability. So they were looking at census in this other kind of way here. Okay. Now, why I bring this up is that it talks about apportionment among the several states. And you might go, so what, Scott? Why is this a big deal? Okay. And I thought this would be not a huge issue. I frankly had not thought about the second section whatsoever until I started to hear over the last several months. It frankly didn't actually come up until 2025, and I wasn't paying any attention. But you know what? You know who was paying attention? The Democrats have been paying attention over the last several years, because I've been asking this question, and you might have been too, but I frankly hadn't been paying any attention whatsoever. How come in places like California, Nancy Pelosi or Chuck Schumer or Bernie Sanders up in Maine area, or I know Chuck Schumer's up in New York. Sorry about that. How come these people are voted to office and frankly are not well liked, for a million years? In Kentucky we have what's his name, Mitch McConnell, who just tripped the other day. And you're like, these people have been there forever and a day. Even on the conservative side, we have several other people that are in their 90s. Come on. I don't, why do we have to have these people who have been there, who are in the traditional generations? I mean, all the way up to almost in the greatest generation. I mean, Dianne Feinstein just passed away. She had to actually be helped through her conversations, her circumstances by her daughter. Nancy Pelosi has her daughter help her through the J6, and we're going to talk about some J6 things. Okay. And you go, why do these people have to have it over and over again? And it's like they're unchallenged all the way through here. Apportionment. You're going to see some of this kind of thing come in here. Okay. So we're going to show you actually what Jasmine, this idiot, now we talked about her before. We showed this little conversation here before.
You randomly kidnapping folks and you throwing them out of the country against their civil rights, against their constitutional rights. And frankly, how would they feel if some other country decided that they were going to just start throwing people randomly in our country? Like that is absolutely insane. So yes, all I gotta say is y'all need to get these fools out of here.
So idiot Jasmine, supposed attorney, before, if you listen to her before, she used to talk with a normal accent, didn't have this, a moron Southern accent that she has, that she's adopted right now. And you ought to listen to M. Donnie. That boy had a very Middle Eastern accent, now has this very, very Americanized accent. If you listen to him, and you can actually listen to him, you go, wait a second, who am I listening to? This sounds like an actor if I've ever heard of anyone. Same kind of thing as this Jasmine. What we just learned about several months ago is that redistricting is actually come for her, and she's going to lose her seat. Let's show you a little bit about some of the seats that have actually been changed over in South America, Southern American states. Look at these blue, which are Democrat areas. And these have been in some of these areas. So in Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, and these are all around the major cities, right? Atlanta area. These were hotly contested in 2020, right? This is why Georgia flipped over in 2020. Now, Alabama, Mississippi went for Trump in those timeframes, but North Carolina didn't. And yet Georgia went for Trump in 2024, but it didn't in 2020. And now I have a lot of inside information on Kemp at that time frame in 2020, and Kemp is going to absolute prison. I promise you, little Governor Kemp, he's on the chopping block. I promise you that boy is going to be gone. Okay, so this Atlanta area and the Dome, the Atlanta Dome, or whatever it's called down there, State Farm, whatever it is down there, that place was a den of thieves in that circumstance. But you notice that they're actually in the Orlando and the Miami area. They actually want to change these. And this actually can flip a whole state. This actually had the exact same circumstance in 2000 as it did in 2020. Now, when you see the redistricting, the Republicans gain 12 more seats. And this was actually this actually boosted up, or went all the way up to the Supreme Court. SCOTUS actually said, yes, this is capable. And it comes directly from the 14th Amendment. Now, Gavin Newsom actually said this: Trump is about to steal nearly 19 or 20 seats from Congress. Supreme Court is poised to wipe away the Voting Rights Acts of 1965. No, he's not. That is not what happens. And SCOTUS, who has a very strong leaning toward the left, actually agreed, not just with Trump, agreed with the Constitution, the 14th Amendment. Okay? But here's how far, we'll go back to the same thing here. Oops, sorry, got to pull it off the screen. I always forget to click that off the screen. Again, this is the Apportionment Act. This is representation of among the several states. This is where they've been gerrymandering. This is where we come up with that term. This is why this is so important. Okay? They've been messing with the states for a very long time. And this isn't just about being Democrat or Republican. This is what we need to, and I'm not even trying to lean toward Republican. I'm trying to lean toward patriotism. Okay. Okay. But let's show you a little bit more. Let's skip off of just that particular thing. We're going to show you actually and I was talking to a gentleman named John who lives in California, and he was just, woe is me, woe is the world, everything's just going to hell in a handbasket. And I said, John, get off the TV. And he kind of stopped for a second. And I know that he doesn't listen just to CNN, but and I'm going to show you a CNN clip here with that too. But it's like he listens to everything. And I know he listens to Fox News, but you know what? When you listen to them, this is how they talk. This is what they do, and they breed fear in you all the time.
The Supreme Court is considering what could really be the end of the Voting Rights Act, which would protect minority groups. So you don't have a state that's half black, for example, that elects only one congressional member and everybody else goes to the Republicans.
See, that's how they breed the fear. Listen to that again.
The Supreme Court is considering what could really be the end of the Voting Rights Act, which would protect minority groups. So you don't have a state that's half black, for example, that elects only one congressional member and everybody else goes to the Republicans.
You see, how they're saying it is that black people would only vote for Democrats. Now, I want you to catch another thing. Why is the screen blue? This whole thing is gerrymandering from start to finish. It's redistricting wars. This is all about the second section of the 14th Amendment. And he brings to you the conversation of 1965. That had nothing to do with the Constitution. The Voting Rights Act has nothing to do with the Constitution. It's about saying that people needed to be listened to. But what does the Constitution here, oops, sorry, let me pull it off screen here. Sorry, keep doing that here. Does the listening to the state representation shall be apportioned among the several states? Does that listen to the people? Absolutely 100%. And when you add the 15th Amendment that listens to women as well as men, that listens to everyone. It didn't say black citizens not listening to black citizens. It said men and women, because the 13th Amendment freed the black people. So it didn't say, oh, not for black people. Now, it excluded Indians. Now, it went back. We have a later things that would talk about Indians. Now, that was fixed a little bit later on. And so, obviously there are some issues of the Trail of Tears and other issues. So I don't want to get into that particular topic there. Again, that's some interesting points that kind of come up here. And I'm going to show you kind of funny little things out here. See, Democrats say that mail-in ballots ban will have an undue hardship on dead voters. See, that's why I'm trying to share with you, because every time they put in these kinds of bans, here's what happens. And I'm going to show you this little thing out here as well. Oops, sorry, bring out this little part.
Right here. Put the ballot in this way.
Okay, listen to this. A vote no for Gavin Newsom's redistricting plan is clearly visible through the intentional opening of the envelope. Why? So it can disappear or be disappeared by the Democrat balloting collectors. Watch this again.
Vote is cast right here.
If it says no, look at how the ballot is set.
Put the ballot in this way.
See, this is how they gerrymander everything. This is what they do so that they can see it. Oh, we're going to rip that thing up. This is what they do all the time. And guys, I'm trying to tell you that every single time they do things, they love to gerrymander things. They love to rip up ballots over and over again. They love to mess with systems so that they don't have to pay attention to when you vote for things, because that's just how they do stuff. They don't want to pay attention to you, and they want to have their people set in place. That's why they want to have their 19 extra electors in different areas. And if you saw what they do in Illinois, this is just 19 electors here in different areas. If we saw it in the rest of the United States, we might see no one in Democratic areas. If you would read the 17th letter on the 4chan channels, you'd see maybe the Democratic Party might not exist anymore. Now, I'm not trying to say we should just have only Republican on the ballots. I would love to see independent people on there as well. Because what would happen if we just had Republican, what would happen is this happens in Tulsa quite a bit. What happens is that we see fake Republicans show up on ballots, but they're really not Republicans. They're fake Republicans, and they show up on the ballots, and they really get into office, and they just do the Democrat kind of things, and really what it is anti-American kind of things. What we really need to have is real patriots. We need to get away from the party systems of this whole thing. We need to be away from all of the party. And what happens is we need to have oath of office. When we have an oath of office and you live under the oath of office and you're terrified of messing with the oath of office, and we're going to talk about that on the third section, because when you see the third section of this thing, you'll see that oath of office. And that oath of office will scare the snot out of these people. Because if you walk in and you said you knew that you would not be able to do the gerrymandering issue, because what would happen is that treason would be on your head, you just wouldn't do it. You see, if you know the cop is behind you and you know the cop is on the side of the road, do you drive down the street, the 25-mile-an-hour street, at 45 miles an hour? You don't do it, right? No one does that. No, a couple morons do, but they get pulled over, right? There's a funny video that just happened the other day. It's always white liberal women. She walks out, she has a cup of coffee, and she throws it at a couple of guys videoing. I have no idea what they're videoing. It doesn't show the whole thing. She throws her coffee at these two people and throws her coffee at them, turns around, walks off the street, and who's parked right there are two cops who see her all the way through and through, and they arrest her. Of course, this is, and she's like, oh, crud. And that's what we need to have, is these people who finally get their comeuppance at that one point in time. You see, when people have to sign their name to this kind of stuff, when there are real, wait a second, I'm going to have the authorities right on my shoulder, you can't do this kind of stuff. You see, when we have accountability, that's why we have to see real accountability. When that kind of day comes, no more of this stuff will actually happen. So that's why I wanted you to see the second portion of the 14th Amendment. It might not be as sexy as the next two that are coming, but the next two are so fascinating, it'll blow your mind. So, as I've said before, it really helps if you like and subscribe and share it with your friends. Thanks so much.